But lose they did. And Lenore, I guess the question is what will be the impact on COAG, for example, given that you got that outcome in Victoria and the prospects in New South Wales aren't great for Labor either.
Well, my first prayer is that Tony Abbott's left the studio and didn't see those budgie smuggler push-up shots, because we really don't want that in the federal arena. But in terms of Julia Gillard, she says this is the year of delivery, and it has to be for Labor. But almost everything that she has to deliver requires buy-in from the states. You think the mining tax, hospital reforms, the water reforms, Andrew Wilkie's pokies measures, even the carbon tax will require, business will want the states to take off their inefficient taxes if a federal tax comes in. All of it requires buy-in from the states. Now, having 2 and soon 3 Conservative premiers probably doesn't mean they'll always be against what the federal government proposes, but it makes it much harder. It makes it much harder to use Labor Party contacts to kind of strong-arm the premiers, and it makes it much more likely that there'll be a holdout state on things, and it just makes her year more difficult.
What Ted Baillieu has said, and he was talking more specifically here about health, I think, but he said that as he sees it at the moment, it's a race to the average. So he wants some changes, but he hasn't at this point said that I'm going to be I'm going to get in the way of the government on health or Murray-Darling or anything else.
No, but look, remember that for 5 years John Howard was Prime Minister when the next most senior elected Liberal was the Lord Mayor of Brisbane, and he managed to do some things through the COAG process. Then, as in then, premiers will make decisions based entirely on state interests and protecting their exchequers. It doesn't matter what badge they carry on their lapel, and the same will go with the new Premier of Victoria. Not much has changed,
really. And the point is that most of what the federal government's doing has an effect on their exchequers. Both the health reform and the mining tax and the pokies all either reduces state revenue or reduces the state's ability to raise revenue.
And the capacity to compensate for change is much diminished
exactly.
now.
But of course, Baillieu is taking over a state which under Labor was notoriously difficult for Canberra to deal with. It was extremely difficult to deal with on water, it was extremely difficult to deal with on health. In fact, it was the Brumby Labor government which really busted Rudd's ambition to transfer to Canberra control of, the absolute control of the health of the nation. But the other really interesting thing is the rise of the Nationals. The Nationals got a very strong vote in Canberra. It was up something like 25% for them. And the Nationals are the party of the irrigators. And the chances now for real change in the Murray-Darling over the next political cycle are looking slight. The Nationals are about to be back in power in New South Wales, they're back in power in Victoria, and they will fight for irrigators, they will fight for water.
And whatever Julia Gillard does requires the state to legislate subsequently, so
Absolutely.
I would agree with you.
And what do you think the Nationals will think about the NBN in their private moments?
Well, they want it. They understand, everybody in the bush is telling them they want it. And in fact, everybody in Australia wants it, except Tony Abbott and a coterie of his party. The NBN, polling figures from Essential Polls this week, the NBN is more popular with Labor voters than even with Green voters. It's extraordinarily popular in the bush. The message of Australia is just get on and do the bloody thing.